Springtime. Love it.
I'm a Trumpocrat. The Trumpocrat, that's right.
Take a chill pill, man.
That's correct.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
That's correct.
I'm a Trumpocrat. The Trumpocrat, that's right.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
I'm not a perfect person.
Springtime. Love it.
Remember when J.B. Pritzker
Hey, how's it going? We're just minutes away from today's Ben Joravsky show. Give us a song of the day for our host to butcher.
Talks
That's correct. That's correct.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone,
All right, guys, we're ready. Ben just changed the title of the show last second.
Oh, that's the title.
I put the titles on YouTube, and
Thursday.
Ben's like, "Oh, I'm going to change the title." I'm like, "Oh, jeez." And he's like, "What do you care?" Hey, get a clue, dude.
It's a tough job we have here.
How's it going, everybody? We're live.
Yes, we are, sort of.
Talking to the listeners.
Oh, hi, listeners.
Your Ben Joravsky show for Thursday, June 25th.
Very good.
Is just moments away. But before we do this, let's thank these unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. By the way, Ben, we have a song of the day already ready. So get ready.
Wow, that was fast.
Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8.
That's correct.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9 are sponsors.
That's correct.
As well as the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board. And of course, today's Ben Joravsky show for Thursday, June 25th is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor.
And for the record, I love puppies.
Oh, you too?
I've already talked for 10 minutes about J.B. Pritzker today. Great conversation with Mick Dunkey before I came on the air.
Excellent. Way to talk about the things you talked about before the show. Things that no one can listen to.
That's called pre-show prep. Pre-show prep.
All right, so your song of the day, Ben, it's after 1979, I believe. So we're going to cross our fingers here.
A sweat
And,
here.
you know, if you've never heard it, just make up your own song. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Today's song of the day, brought to you by, I believe, Pat Rod. What up, Pat Rod? Working for the Weekend.
I actually kind of know that song. Working for the weekend, baby. Working for the weekend every day.
That's not the song.
Do you know it?
Yes.
How's it go?
Everybody's working for the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one where they go down to Dino's? No.
That's Thin Lizzy.
Oh, sorry.
That's The Boys Are Back in Town.
Love that song.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's a great song.
I have heard Working for the Weekend.
Well, give it another try.
Okay. What?
Everybody's working for the weekend.
Everybody's working for the weekend, but some people are working harder than others.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, they all can't be singers, guys. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Thursday, June 25th, and yes, still live from Ben's attic. This is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, Union man Ed Maher returns. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here, calling this Joe Biden's Basket Thursday, and here's why. So I woke up bright and early today, folks. I was up earlier than Dennis. Yes, got up at about 7 o'clock. Why? No, actually 6:30, to be honest. Why? Because I had to go to the dentist. Yes, the dentist in the pandemic. Had to go to the dentist, had to get my teeth cleaned. It was an appointment I made before the pandemic hit. I was startled yesterday, Dee, to learn that they kept that appointment. I got one of those text reminders. Dee, 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 dee. I thought it was a joke, but nope. I had that dentist appointment. I thought about ditching it, but I don't know. You got to get your teeth cleaned. So anyway, went over to the dentist office, and they're taking a lot of precautions. It was like absolutely everyone was decked out in a hazmat suit. You know, they had face masks. And then they put you in the seat, and they put the drill on, and then they start talking to you. It was really hard to hear them with the masks, and I wanted to wear my mask. I go, sorry. you can't wear your mask when you're getting your teeth cleaned.
Duh.
I know. It's like, can I just kind of work around it?
No.
Anyway.
How does that even make sense?
I know, but I don't know. The pandemic, I was scared. You know, because the sign said wear your mask, but then of course you have to take your mask off when you get your teeth cleaned. Anyway, so the dentist was poking around in my teeth and cleaning things, making me feel really good about myself, saying I'm doing okay, this, that, the other thing, and then right in the middle of everything, she went on this ripping Trump. I know, I was caught off guard. They're a liberal dentist. I'd never had discussed politics with my dentist before. I've never had a liberal dentist. Back when I was a kid, I had a Dr. Freeman was the dentist, and he was a big supporter of Richard Nixon. This is back in the day when Nixon was president, and I looked like a hippie freak because I had all his hair back then, so he just assumed I was a hippie freak. And so I'd be sitting in the chair getting my teeth cleaned. And, of course, I can't say anything because my mouth's open. And he's going on, hey, what your generation doesn't understand about Nixon is he's getting stuff done. You know, and he's got the drill. Probably wouldn't have said anything anyway, even if I could, because the guy had the drill. And
yeah, just agree with him. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I love Nixon.
Yeah.
4 more years. Anyway, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you this, Steve, but Dr. Freeman had the hairiest hands I've ever had.
You know, you've never told me this. Why would you tell me this?
That's kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The dentist with hairy hands. Anyway, but my dentist is not a Nixon supporter, not a Trump supporter at all. And she was ripping Trump and MAGA hat people in general. And she got off on the topic of the Trump rally in Arizona, where Trump packed the church with a huge collection of nitwits of the non-mask wearing variety. And naturally, Trump had all the people in the auditorium, in the church, who showed up, sign a waiver excusing him of any liability should they get COVID-19, which some may get since they were packed into the church like sardines. Anyway, noting that, my dentist said that Trump should have made them sign a waiver where they waive away their rights to get medical treatment should they get COVID. And I was like, whoa, I was thinking about that. And she said, after all, they're blatantly and knowingly breaking the rules, disobeying the doctor's orders. They're willingly contacting other people in a confined area without the mask, even though they've been told not to do that. So if they should get COVID, why should any nurse or doctor or nurse's aide have to risk their life treating them? I was like, oh my God, that's like genius. And then my second thought, is that legal? Quick, call Coogan. Jim Coogan. Where are you when I need you, Jim? Just kidding. And Jim Coogan, ace attorney, comes on the show maybe once a month.
Oh, hey, Ben, what's going on?
To talk about all Trump's illegalities. And we always ask the question, is that legal?
Listeners, you got to admit, my Coogan's pretty good.
No, it is a good imitation. Yeah, Pritzker, please. Lori.
Okay, we're not doing that.
Oh, come on, please. In the pre-show prep, he does it every time. But now when he's show, he's like, oh, I'm not doing it because I'm an artist. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. So I thought that was a great suggestion. And I was, wasn't sure if it was illegal or not. And I realized, folks, that I talked about this yesterday, but it's hard not to talk about it again because as I sit here, the paper in front of me is filled with stories about, quote, U.S. staggers back on rope as virus soars. So the news keeps getting worse in Florida, Texas, and Oklahoma. They're reporting the highest single-day totals. Even here in Illinois, we've been much better about social distancing and following health protocols. Our rates are, at least went up. I think it was over 700 cases yesterday. First time it's been over 700 in a while. So, yeah, the pandemic's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, our country's being led by a man who's decided he's had enough of the pandemic. Doesn't want to deal with it anymore. My dentist pointed out to me that President Trump has...
Your dentist?
Yes,
okay.
My dentist.
It sounded like you said your dentist.
No.
My name's awfully close to dentist.
But I would have called you my Dr. D.
Okay.
She's my dentist D. You're Dr. D or Dr. Doobie.
Several kids have made fun of me, calling me dentist.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
So, which would you rather not be called, dentist or Dr. Doobie?
Oh, no one call me dentist.
Okay. Anyway, so anyway, I was talking with the dentist, and she was pointing out that Donald Trump has not had one of those press conferences where he talks about, the state of our country in the middle of this pandemic in quite a while. And it's pretty clear that Donald Trump has just gotten tired of the pandemic, got tired of dealing with the pandemic, got tired of sitting at the White House, wants to get back on the road, wants to just bask in the cheers of all his fans. He's watching the same polls that we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, that show he's really on the ropes, and it's desperate times. So we're done with that. Well, the reality is, of course, we're not done with that. And so here's the thing. I really don't want to be in the position that I'm in now. I don't want to be in a position where I have to so fervently hope that Joe Biden is elected president in November. Joe Biden and I don't see eye to eye on, 9 out of 10 things.
Oh, you mean this guy?
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Hear words.
Yeah,
Okay.
that guy.
Got the note there.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. So, he's way more the centrist than I am. And my guy was Bernie. And I still haven't completely gotten over that. All right? I'm pretty much over it, but not completely gotten over it. And I really resent the fact that I have to put all my eggs in the Joe Biden basket. But if the other side...
Yeah, what a crappy basket.
if the other side is going to be so freaking flat earth stupid, what choice do I have? We got a great show today, everybody. Notice I didn't hit the desk?
Yeah.
I pay attention to your needs and concerns.
Thank you.
We got a
Oh, my
great show.
God.
Did I set them up, ladies and gentlemen? We got a great show today. Union Man Ed Maher is in the studio today. Not in the studio. God, wish I were back in the studio. We'll be on the phones with us today, discussing. We're going to be breaking down the state of the economy.
You had a long phone conversation with Mick, didn't you?
And Ed.
I could tell. That was a short intro, pal.
I was on the phone with Ed Maher for about a half an hour, and then I was on the phone with Mick for about a half an hour.
All right.
Fascinating stuff. So Ed Maher will be here at 2 o'clock. And then we have our second drop will be Keely Parnell, Cannabis Conversation. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's going to be available at about 7 o'clock. Or no, wait, that's a bonus interview, right?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be a bonus interview, guys. So this weekend, be on the lookout for our Cannabis Conversation.
Yeah, that'll be a bonus interview, and we'll do a post-show meeting and decide what day that drops.
Yeah.
Oh, and guess who else? We have another interview today. Do you remember that one?
It's Mr. Bike with a city council synopsis.
That is correct. We're really looking forward to that one. That'll be a blast. I'll probably drop Saturday. And David Ferris will be tomorrow, so we have a weekend lineup already set.
But today's show's going to be awesome, guys.
What? It's called promotion.
I know.
Ever heard of it?
I know. You're just kind of all over the place here.
Ever heard of it? Yeah. Didn't I give you the introduction for the news?
No!
Oh, but first,
oh my God.
The man from Alton, the man they call Dr. Doobie with the news.
It's going to be a long one today, gang. How's it going? Let's find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. It's the return of the big feller. No, not Union Man Ed Maher. I mean, yeah, he's returning on the program today as well. And yes, also a big feller. But I'm talking about the other big feller, the one that our host loves to trash talk, Illinois Downstate Rep Darren Bailey.
That's correct.
More on that in moments. But first, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Springtime. Love it.
Okay, actually it's summer now, but I feel you, JB. I feel you. Today, the governor is back at the Thompson Center for a 2:30 coronavirus update. The last one was Tuesday, and we learned that school will be back in the fall. What will we learn today? Not sure. It's at 2:30. Be sure to watch it, and if you miss it, don't worry. We'll more than likely be covering the details on tomorrow's Ben Joravsky show. Ben, any predictions on what the governor will tell us today?
I have a hunch, and this is just a hunch based on my conversations with Mick Dumpke and having read I don't want to give away the Darren Bailey portion of the show. is that he's going to be addressing some of the concerns that Republicans have been raising about whether he should open up downstate faster than he's going. That's my guess. He's going to deal with the issue of whether he's being too restrictive with downstate Illinois. That would be my guess.
All right. Hey, any predictions? Live stream chat. Weigh in. Let us know your thoughts. All right. Now, as you know, Pritzker has had those big hot dog fingered hands of his full for the last 3.5 months dealing with the coronavirus. And we got one more potential problem to add to the pile. You know, if it ain't one thing, it's another. And the following comes from CBS 2 Chicago. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut on Wednesday announced a requirement of 14-day quarantines for people visiting from other states that are seeing spikes in coronavirus cases. Governor J.B. Pritzker said he has no plans for a similar requirement in Illinois, but that could change. We do have the audio of the governor. Like to hear it? Here it goes. Shout out to CBS. Please don't sue us.
We're making decisions based upon the data and the science that we're being provided. Very critically important that states make decisions for themselves about how they want to handle it. That's not something that we are looking at implementing right now. But going forward, if we got the advice to do that, we might.
Yeah, it seems like we're going backwards rather than forwards. That's just a big topic of conversation between Mick and myself before we came on the show. It seems it's just like we're having a second wave of virus contagions, and it seems as though we didn't learn anything the first time, and so now we're trying new things. So the whole notion of quarantining people who come in from out of state, remember when that question was posed to Pritzker early on? I think we were still in the attic when it was posed to him about quarantining Cook County.
I mean, if it involved a quarantine, it was definitely in the attic.
Well, there was discussion. There was that day or two, but whatever. And he dismissed that as something he wouldn't, just wasn't even considering. What was it that he wouldn't let people get in and out of Cook County or Chicago to go downstate? It was people downstate saying, "Hey, we don't have a problem. Why don't you just cordon off Cook County and Chicago? Don't let anybody come out, and then we won't get it." As though they couldn't get it from other areas of the country. So yeah, I you know, a lot of people do it on their own anyway. I don't know if you know this, D, but like my kids are coming in, and they're not gonna come to the house for 2 weeks or whatever. They're gonna self-quarantine. But I think as though we're like heading into that.
So what are they gonna do? Stay in a hotel or sleep outside? What's going on?
Yeah, well, that right out there's a porta potty and everything.
All right.
Yeah. So no, they're gonna be staying. They're gonna find some place to stay. They're not just gonna come home and rush in and hug us and give us the disease. They're very concerned about us.
Well, Ben, I'm gonna ask you exactly what the meanest Illinois political bulldog in the yard, Capital Facts' Rich Miller. I'm gonna ask you what he's asking all of his readers in his latest poll. Head to capitalfacts.com, by the way, FAX like a fax machine, and participate now. Ben Joravsky, should the governor mandate that visitors from states with high infection rates or Illinoisans returning from those states quarantine themselves for 2 weeks?
Mandate? No. I don't think they should mandate that. I don't think so. I don't even know how it, like you just pointed out, the impracticalities of it all. But I know that a lot of people impose it on their quarantine themselves. Like I have a dear friend, this to answer your question, when she went to Minnesota to visit her mother, she stayed in a bed and breakfast for, I think it was 2 weeks. And then she finally went to stay with her mom. But so I'm not at the stage where it's mandatory. And by the way, this gets back to the whole issue that we've been talking about throughout, D, which is how do you enforce it? You follow what I'm saying? Remember when Lori was going to lock everybody up, and we joked about her in the lakefront. You got to keep moving. Well, how are you going to?
No congregating. Keep it moving.
So it's unless we're going to go the way Italy went, just lock down in your house. You're not leaving, which I can't see this country doing. And it's just, I mean, it's so difficult because there's so many. Each state, you know, has its own ideological worldview of the virus. You get what I'm saying? So like Florida and Ron DeSantis has a far different view than J.B. Pritzker here in Illinois, or Abbott in Texas has a far different view. So it's just so impractical to think of the United States at this stage enacting something like that. Just don't see it as a practical solution.
Yeah, good time to own a camper right now. All of our listeners who own a camper, you're in luck. My brother has a camper, and he set up a quarantine camper. He said if anybody gets it, they go in the camper. Boom.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, my brother has a quarantine camper.
A quarantine camper. I hope he scrubbed it down.
Yeah, probably not. All right, quite a bit of Pritzker news today, so let's keep rolling here. The governor was...
Wait, what's your view?
On what?
The Rich Miller question.
I mean, yeah, you should... I don't know if you make it a mandate, you know? Just, hey, guys, just, you know, we're kind of on our own here. Figure it out. How about that?
So in other words, you have faith that people will do the right thing.
Yeah. And just stay away from dumbasses. How about that, huh?
Okay.
Right?
Governor Dennis.
Oh, we'd all be screwed. Okay.
Governor D.
Quite a bit of Pritzker news today, so let's keep rolling here. The governor was also the subject of a brand new attack ad. Yes, guys, a Darren Bailey story and a political attack ad. It's a good day to be the Ben Joravsky Show. All right, today's JB is Not For Me ad comes from a group known as Illinois Rising Action. I went to the Illinois Rising Action website, and I learned that Illinois Rising Action is an organization focused on holding liberal groups and their special interest networks accountable. Their other focus, advancing conservative principles. They are fighting for limited government, lowering taxes, fighting government over regulation that stifles freedom, affordable and accessible healthcare, free enterprise, and a strong national security. What do you think about that, Ben?
Regulation that stifles freedom, like regulating Colin Kaepernick's right to take a knee, like that kind of regulation that stifles freedom. Is that what they were talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't think
Sounds
so.
about right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I think about that. Bunch of garbage.
Here's the press release attached to the ad. The Illinois Rising Action's executive director, Kayleen Carlson, says Governor Pritzker is just another tax and spend Democrat whose solution to anything is to raise taxes. Pritzker is not on the ballot this year, but the ad campaign wants you to remember two words. What do you think those two words are?
F you?
Vote Republican.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So kind of F you.
Yeah.
All right, so without further ado, let's hear the ad from Illinois Rising Action. Do they bring up Toiletgate, the time Governor Pritzker ripped out the toilets in his Gold Coast mansion to save over $300,000 in property taxes? What do you think?
Remember when J.B. Pritzker ripped out his toilets to dodge paying property taxes? Investigators called it a scheme to defraud taxpayers. Now, Pritzker is scheming again. First, he raised taxes on gas, cars, and online shopping. Then, while voters were distracted, Pritzker gave huge pay raises to his politician buddies. Even worse, when unemployed workers needed help, Pritzker failed. Call Governor Pritzker. Remind him he works for Illinois families, not politicians. Paid for by Illinois Rising Action.
So they released this today? Let me get this straight.
I believe so. Maybe last night, today.
So it's just like a general attack ad to poison the water for J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, because we're in, June. JB's not on the ballot until, let's say he runs for re-election. It wouldn't be to 2022, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. So nobody's even thinking about JB's re-election run. If there's an election on anybody's mind, it's November's election, which is pretty much on everybody's mind. So, yeah, I guess that's their strategy, just sort of generally poison the water regarding J.B. Pritzker. To what end? I'm not sure. They don't mention the Fair Tax Initiative. Is there more to this commercial, D?
No, that was it.
That was it?
You know, and they kind of said it there in the press release, saying Pritzker's not on the ballot this year, but the ad campaign wants you to remember those two words, vote Republican.
Yeah.
Training them early.
Yeah, but that's the press release. It didn't even say that in the ad. I don't know. Maybe there's rules that govern what they can say in their ad. So I'm not quite sure, other than just generally poisoning the waters regarding J.B. Pritzker, what they're promoting. I'm not quite sure in general what the Republican Party, in the country and in the state of Illinois, what they're promoting. They don't have a position on anything. I've been watching with interest the great debate going on in Congress between Republicans and Democrats on the police reform bill, and it's in the Senate right now. And I think it's dead there. The Republicans can't get enough votes to essentially end the Democratic filibuster on the bill, and so for instance, the issue of the chokehold. Should police be allowed to use a chokehold? The Democrats want to ban that. This is just one example. Just one example. Republicans say no. They don't want to ban it, but they feel like they'll punish police districts that don't have it. They reserve the right to punish police districts that don't have a ban on chokehold by denying them federal money, or perhaps denying them federal money. In other words, they don't offer anything as an alternative to what the Democrats are offering on the issue, this one particular issue. And so it's like, well, what do you stand for? Just the status quo? Why even have? If you think that there's nothing wrong with the way the police are policing, then that should be the position of your party, and don't change anything, which is kind of where they are because of the rhetoric coming from Donald Trump. And that's the big problem for the Republican Party right now, is that they're tied to Donald Trump, and whichever way he goes, which one day it's this way, the next day it's that, they're obligated to follow him. It's like a zigzagging thing. And so I don't know what they stand for anymore. I do know that in general, going back to Illinois, they're against any form of taxation. That's their proclamation, against any form of taxation. So then they have to get real about, well, how are we going to pay for our basic obligations that we have in the state of Illinois? And they are for some things, like they want roads to be repaired because their constituents drive on roads. But if you're not going to have taxes, if you're not going to raise money, how are you going to pay for that? So the Republican Party's in a sort of bizarre situation, just in general, but I'm talking right here in the state of Illinois. They don't stand for anything. Nothing specific, nothing particular. And so it's really hard to convey a message. The last person they had in charge, Bruce Rauner, governor from 2014 to 2018, his essential plan, his great idea was to have government go bankrupt. He thought that was a good idea. And that by going bankrupt, he could destroy unions, he could destroy our pension system, and give more money to people like himself. That was the Republican policy. That failed. He was defeated, and so they're struggling right now. I don't know what they stand for. And so I guess they're just anti-Pritzker, which, I'm kind of like that with Trump. I'm anti-Trump, but I could pinpoint particular policies that Trump has instituted, and I could come up with alternatives. The Republican Party they don't want to be on the hook for any alternatives, because that would mean you have to fund government. And they're not quite sure how they want to raise the money for that.
So funny. Toiletgate, that's sticking around, JB. That's not going anywhere, buddy.
No, and by the way, we predicted, we talked about that a lot when it was breaking in real time. And I said, oh my goodness, now you're firing me up about Toiletgate. I had troubles voting for Pritzker in the primary.
Who'd you vote for again?
Oh man, come on! You're gonna make me embarrass myself. I should have voted Diber.
No, you didn't. I voted for Bob Diber.
Should have Diber. You notice how I did that? Should have voted for Diber. Okay. People think, oh, he voted for Diber. Dennis was the cool one. He voted for Diber.
Well, we gotta get down to business.
And you voted for...
I forgot his name. He's really good. Oh,
Daniel
yeah,
Biss.
I voted for Letitia Wallace. Oh, all right? That's who I voted for, okay?
All right,
Letitia Wallace.
That's fair.
All right? I was just talking to Letitia this weekend. She said to say hi. But anyway, yeah, Toiletgate. He was running on a platform of raising taxes on people like himself, and then there was this evidence of him scheming to avoid having to pay taxes. So, embarrassing situation. Ah! But it's the rearview mirror, D. Time to move on, all right?
Okay. It is time to move on. But before we move on, Ben Joravsky, like we always do with these political ads, on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being god-awful, 5 being, holy crap, that is awesome. What do you give this ad from Illinois Rising Action?
-3.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a terrible ad. Seriously, I don't know. I probably have a different view. See, one thing Dennis has helped me understand is sort of the depth of opposition to J.B. Pritzker downstate. And in the good old days when we would be taking the train home from the studio, we'd be sitting next to each other. Remember the days when you could sit on a train, D? Huh?
The good old days.
And he would go, look, he would show me his Facebook page filled with all these anti-Pritzker.
Oh, I'm from downstate, guys. So, yeah, there's going to be people that I went to high school with and stuff that have anti-Pritzker stuff.
Yeah, that's what they called him. Anyway, he would show me this stuff, and I go, oh, my God, they hate the guy down there. And, so I suppose...
Guys, they call him Pritzker.
Yeah. So I suppose that if it's just in general, you just want to remind the base that they hate Pritzker, then it's an effective ad. If you just want to remind the base why they didn't like Pritzker in the first place, you bring back Toiletgate. But I don't know. It just seems so irrelevant, D, to talk about Toiletgate. What is it? 3 years later?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
In the middle of a pandemic, and where we're confronting all these century-old issues of race relation problems. You know what I'm saying? Dysfunction in our country. It's kind of really stretching things to go back to Toiletgate. Okay, I'm with you guys. I thought Toiletgate was outrageous. I didn't vote for him in the primary. Don't blame me. I voted for Letisa Wallace. That's my new answer to that question.
Voted for Daniel Biss, all right? Oh, and for some reason, my father calls him Pritzner with an N in the middle. I don't know. That's silly.
But your father voted for him.
Pritzner. Yeah.
But in defense of Daddy D, he voted for him.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay, just saying.
I mean, the competition wasn't too stiff, you know what I mean?
Did he vote for Diber in the primary?
Oh, he didn't know who that was.
And it's guy from 618.
Yeah. He was clueless.
Yeah, I should have voted for him.
Oh, hell, downstate.
I voted for Letisa Wallace. That's who I voted for.
All right, before we get to our state news headliner, Darren Bailey, we got to look out for our, 3, 4 listeners who actually care about this piece of news I'm going to read to you. I'm sure you're out there somewhere, so listen up. Hey, Abraham Lincoln nerds! After a series of changes to protect visitor health, the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum is finalizing plans to reopen to the public on Wednesday, July 1st.
Gotta open. Is there more to this story?
Like I said, there's like 3 or 4 listeners who were like, oh, yeah! No, that's it.
Well, the state of Illinois is slowly open. Which phase is that, D? I've lost track of the phases.
We're in 3, and we're about to go to 4.
I give you credit for knowing that.
Yeah.
My dentist knew that too, by the way. She knew which phase we were in. I forgot. I can't keep track of the phases. So yeah, it's Illinois is reopening, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, but I don't have a lot of faith in it that we're not just going to go back to phase 1. And why do I feel we're going
as
back?
Always, glass half empty at the Joravsky household.
I just got this feeling, D. September rolls around. We're back at phase 1. Oh no.
All right, well, here we go, everybody. Shout out to Capital Facts and Rich Miller,
yes.
because he was the one who posted the latest op-ed from Illinois downstate representative Darren Bailey. Yes, just like our host, Darren Bailey is apparently a writer.
Paperback writer, yeah.
For those who may not know, Darren Bailey was the first Illinois politician to push back on Governor Pritzker's stay-at-home order. He actually sued the governor and won, causing he himself to be exempt from the stay-at-home order, and he encouraged others to follow his lead. He was away from the news for a while, which made us sad because this guy has provided great content for the Ben Joravsky Show.
Yeah, DB.
So we're glad to have him back in the news, needling the governor on his 5-phase strategy to reopen Illinois. But we're glad to have him back here with his latest op-ed title. The title here, "We don't want a new normal, we want the old normal." Now, I sent this over to Ben. He read it. So, Ben, take it from here. And if you could, please impart some journalistic advice for Darren Bailey.
Well, Okay, let's just start with whether I believe he actually wrote it. And, this is a common theme on the Ben Joravsky Show. Do politicians whose name appear above an article, are they the true authors of the article?
I mean, he is a farmer. He's got a lot going on, so maybe he had someone else write it. Hey, write this while I feed them hogs. Who's going to feed them hogs?
So, and Joe, we've discussed this great length about one Rahm Emanuel, who was on top of it, was always writing essays for various the Tribune and the New York Times. And of course, I never believed he read them, much less wrote them. Now, did Darren
Take
Bailey,
a chill pill, man.
Yeah, sorry, Rahm. By the way, I saw the bookstores open, D. It's part of Phase 3, and I got to go to a bookstore this weekend. I saw Rahm's book on the shelf. How about that?
And you bought it?
No.
Oh.
But anyway, I saw it. And so, did Darren Bailey write this essay? I'm going to give him the benefit. I'm going to say yes, he wrote it. Okay? I'm just going to give it to him. How about that, D? He didn't try any, great rhetorical flourishes or anything like that. There was nothing in there that was really clever that said, somebody else wrote this thing, like with Rahm, the telltale signs. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he just wrote it. Okay? Probably wrong. And it's probably not right of me to give him the benefit of the doubt, D, but that's the kind of guy I am. But the biggest problem with this essay, all right, let me just explain what the essay's theme is. The essay's theme is that we are living in tyranny. We are living in a state ruled by executive order, that Governor Pritzker has usurped the power that lies with the legislature by dictating the phases that control our lives in the pandemic, ordering when businesses can open as we shift from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 to phase 4, et cetera, and so forth. And that to be a legitimate democracy, Governor Pritzker, should bring in the legislature and have them approve his rules and regulations. And in the most general sense, I agree with Darren Bailey. I've said this all along, that the part of the open up the state crowds theme, that the theme that they raise that most resonates with me is the notion that we should have a check and a balance. It's something I believe in. I believe the legislature should be a check on the executive branch. I've always advocated that here in the city of Chicago, where the mayor is paramount and the alderman just rubber stamp whatever he or she says. Little resistance going on now, but by and large, as the next story will show, D, we still very much rule that way here in Chicago. So in principle, I agree with him. The problem with Darren Bailey's essay and Darren Bailey's worldview is that Republicans in the legislative branch offer nothing. And this gets back to what I was saying earlier. In this particular issue of the pandemic and protecting people, they offer nothing. They don't want any controls, any guidelines. Darren Bailey wouldn't even wear a mask. When the state reps finally got together, convened for a session, when was it, about 3 weeks ago in Springfield? Remember, DB would not wear the mask, and he went through the whole game he played where he showed up even though Speaker Madigan said you have to wear a mask or we'll evict you. He didn't wear the mask. When they told him to put the mask on, he said, I'm not putting the mask on. And so they voted him to leave. They commanded him to leave. So that there tells you he's not serious. Everybody knows you should wear a mask. Proper protocol is that you should wear a mask when you're in that kind of gathering. It's just like Donald Trump in Arizona. How can you take the Republican Party seriously on anything, but in particular, the pandemic, if Donald Trump's going to pack everybody in to a church and laugh at the notion, scoff at the notion that you have to wear a mask or should wear a mask? They pass them out because, the pretense is that they're abiding by the rules that the doctors say we should follow. And then the people just throw them away. No one's enforcing it. They mock it. How about that mayor in, Prescott, Arizona, D, who doubled down? He not only mocked the notion that we should wear masks, but he just mocked George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. So how can you take anything the Republican Party and the Darren Bailey say when you see that they're just opposing protocol, medicine, the advice of doctors, just for the sake of opposing it? It's as though they just have decided that the earth is flat and that's all there is to it. So it's really hard for me to take him seriously. I like the general theme that the legislative body should be a check and a balance on the executive branch. But if the legislative body is so void of logic or reason, or at least the Republican side of it, how can you take them seriously? Why would you want them to lead us? Why would you listen to any argument he conveys if he's the guy who says, I don't need to wear a mask? Or for this matter, if he doesn't even have the courage to criticize the people in his movement who show up to his rallies with Confederate flags and signs with Nazi swastikas. So if you can't even bring it to bring yourself to take a stand against somebody with a swastika on a sign, how can we take what you say with any credibility? How can you give you any kind of credibility with what you say? So in this particular essay, his main theme is that Governor Pritzker has overstepped his bounds, that the state of Illinois is being run by executive authority. And then he cites, this is a funny little thing, he goes, the independent Wire Points. Well, Wire Points is a right-wing website that is virulently anti-Pritzker. So he calls it independent. Right there, all credit. But it's like me quoting myself. Well, as Ben Joravsky said,
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. You know, like when you're marshaling an argument to sort of, defend yourself, generally, rule number one is you take something that the other side says. Yeah, you may be distorting it a little bit when you bring it over. This is the Republican. Now I'm on a tangent with a tangent. This is the Republicans' favorite thing. So when they want to make it seem as though there's no need to make any reforms for regarding police and how police engage with black people, they'll drag in Martin Luther King. And they'll say, Martin Luther King had a dream that one day we'd all be treated for the human beings that we are, not by the color of our skin. That was his dream. He's dead. And so now here we are. And when they say that, it's so dishonest. It's like, dude, you, the guy saying this, you're too young, obviously, to have marched with Dr. King. But if you were around back then, you'd be the one throwing stones at him. You wouldn't have been on the side of Martin Luther King. You're only citing him now because he's not around to defend himself and to see how you're using him to undercut everything he stood for. So that's kind of like, but that's generally what you do when you're trying to build an argument. You go look to somebody else from the other side, you find what you can to fortify it and say, see, even he says that. But DB doesn't do that. He quotes as independent Wire Points say. Well, it's like, you're just quoting yourself. They're just a bunch of other right-wingers, too. They believe the earth is flat. They don't have to wear masks. Why are you quoting them? Doesn't help your argument. So anyway, there's no substance to it other than that one point, which is a good point, that we should not just give so much power to our governor.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I did. I read it.
Now, any inside baseball tips you can give Darren Bailey as far as his next column? Any tips you can give him?
Number one, a joke or two every now and then. Liven it up with a little joke.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Here's a tip. Not that DB would ever follow me. I
don't know.
You admit you were wrong. Let's start off with that. I was a buffoon when I didn't wear the mask, and Ben Joravsky was right. How about that, D? Yeah, say that. I'm like, and the next time he comes on, that DB is pretty smart, D. So, show a little humility every now and then. Use some little joke here or there. Lighten the things up. Don't quote yourself to support yourself, and come up with a strategy. So, DB is saying we don't need any restriction. Oh, here's a inherent inconsistency I just remembered. He was talking about how all these rules that Pritzker imposed on the downstate has really hurt the downstate economy. And then he turned right around and said, well, we haven't been paying attention to him at all anyway. We've been violating all the rules anyway. And so it's like, well, which one is it? You know, either the rules have shackled the downstate economy and put people out of work, or you've just been ignoring them and there are no rules. So kind of little inconsistency there. So a little advice. You might want to read the thing you wrote. There's a little piece of advice.
Oh, okay.
Read what you wrote.
That's good.
Which is starting to make me think maybe he didn't write it.
Darren, you listening to that? Ben's helping you out.
Read what you wrote. Oops.
And hey, don't forget to feed those hogs. Who's going to feed He's a farmer. Okay. Now, Ben, on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being god-awful, 5 being completely awesome, what do you give Darren Bailey's op-ed?
Oh, well, it's better than that commercial.
Oh, right? Okay.
Okay. He spelled Pritzker's name right.
Nice. So my dad didn't write it. Yeah, Pritzker.
I would give it 1's the lowest in this scale. I'll give him a 1.
That's correct.
Hey, that's pretty good on Ben's standards.
I didn't give you a -3 like I gave the ad.
Hey,
but you know what's really sad is that DB is the face of the Republican Party right now. I just want to point that out, okay?
I called it months ago. That's the dude running. He's going to run for governor. Watch.
Yeah. No, but that part where the independent wire points. Oh, yeah, right. Independent wire. That's like the people who probably wrote the damn thing. Now that I think about it, if somebody wrote it, it was some ghostwriter who works for Wire Points. So the ghostwriter, I'll just quote myself. I'm brilliant.
All right, shout out to our live stream chat. You guys are my friends, all right? We had a couple trolls on the live stream chat, and boy, they were giving it to him. But our good friend Steven weighed in. How's it going, Steven? Steven says, say it with me, Ben, because the Republicans are fascists. All they have to do is do things that hurt brown people more than white people. We have to take them seriously because they are still hurting people.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And you have to take them seriously. And that it's sort of the theme of the day, Stephen. I little bit resent the fact that I have to put so much faith in Joe Biden. But the alternative is so bad. I've had this conversation with several of my lefty friends of late. Who've been telling me they're not going to vote for Joe Biden, but they're all...
Oh, that's me. Talking to me. I'm having trouble with that, guys.
But not just you, D. I have a couple other lefty friends. But all of the lefty friends who are saying that are in swing states. I mean, are not in swing states. So, it's like, all right, I got a couple lefty friends in California. They're not going to vote for him. But I just feel that what Trump and Darren Bailey represent is so threatening and so grave. Like this great stand that Darren Bailey took, the great stand against what he thought was executive overreach, was not to wear a mask. And I just thought that was so contemptuous of all of his colleagues. And it's like burying your head in the sand. Try to find some other way to take a stand against overreach by the executive. Why would you do something like not wear a mask? It just promotes the notion that leads to 3,000 college kids packing a church in Arizona while to feed Trump's ego, while the governor of the state of Arizona cheers him on, while cases are rising in that state. So, Stephen, you're absolutely correct. I have to take it very seriously.
That's correct.
You're correct, Stephen. Up top, dude. Yeah. All right. So like I said, that was a lot of Pritzker news, huh? And a lot of state news. Let's move on to the city of Chicago. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Just stay home. Save lives.
Good times. All right, Lori Lightfoot today. She is at Evergreen Academy Middle School with CPS CEO Janice Jackson to announce a new broadband initiative for Chicago students. And hey, speaking of Chicago schools, let's talk about the latest in the Chicago Sun-Times and one Nadir Issa. It says here, wait, where'd it go? Hold on. Here we go. All right. Struggling today, gang. All right. The following comes from, I got to get Frank's password still, by the way. It looks like in a vote 4-3, the city of Chicago has voted to keep Chicago police officers in Chicago schools. Ben Joravsky, your thoughts?
All right. It was the Board of Education's vote, and this is one of my many obsessions. I don't really talk about this that much on the show. For years and years and years at the Reader, I would write articles about the Chicago Public Schools, the Board of Education, the relationship to the mayor, the whole notion of centralization, what it means to have the mayor of the city of Chicago controlling the public schools. And I know a lot of our listeners from outside of Chicago. And so I always try to say to the out-of-towners that studying Chicago is like a parable. So you don't need to know all the specifics, but you just have understanding of the general themes, and you can appreciate just basic power relationships. So one of the things that I was just talking about in relationship with Darren Bailey, the downstate Republican, the MAGA hat wearer who thinks that J.B. Pritzker has too much authority, is that the same situation takes place and has been the reality in Chicago for as long as I can remember, except for that brief moment when Harold Washington was the mayor in the 80s. And that is all the authority is in the hands of the mayor of Chicago. There was a brief moment from roughly 1989 to 1995 where we had a decentralized school system where authority was vested largely in local school councils that ran each of the schools. And so it was small d democracy. It was an attempt to put the schools in the hands of the people who use them. That experiment lasted for about 6 years, and then the state passed a law in 1995 once Mayor Richard M. Daley was in charge, giving the mayor almost exclusive control of the schools. The mayor appointed the Board of Education. The Board of Education set the overall policy. The Board of Education largely determined how much each school was going to get, how much and how they had to spend it. There was some discretion given to the local schools, but not a lot. And that has been the case ever since. And so the schools have become sort of a game for a larger political game. And so mayors ever since, be it Daley, Rahm, and now Lori Lightfoot is playing this game, are always trying to use the schools to make them look better. So there's always an effort to spin test scores to make it seem like the test scores are going up, to make it look like dropout rates are going down, to make it seem as though more people are graduating, to make it seem like they're more equipped for the world that exists outside of our neighborhoods, outside of our city. And in reality, my humble opinion, the Chicago public schools are pretty much the same as they were back in the 80s, in which by that I mean they're always on the verge of running out of money. There's always that fear that bankruptcy somewhere down the road. There's always that inability to balance the needs of the poorest kids from the poorest neighborhoods with the wealthier kids from the wealthier neighborhoods. And there's always a reluctance on the part of the powers that be to spend too much money on the schools, because if you spend too much money on the schools, you won't have enough money to spend on whatever capital projects you have, boondoggles like Lincoln Yards. So that's the central basic struggle that's been going on in the city of Chicago for as long as I can remember. And so that leads to this moment where the defund the police movement has become very strong, and protesters are demanding, Stacey Davis Gates was just on the show last week, demanding that the Board of Education rip up its contract with the Chicago Police Department that requires the board to essentially spend $33 million a year, I think that's the number, I don't have it in front of me, on having a police officer in every school. And Mayor Lori Lightfoot has responded by saying, well, no, it should be left up to the local school councils. And so I don't want to rip up that contract. Well, and the reality is this. There really is no choice that the mayor is giving the local school councils. It's not as though the local school councils say, okay, we don't want a police officer in our school, so allow us to take the money that would be otherwise going to the police officer and spend it on something else. I don't know, computer teacher or what have you. Doesn't allow you to do that. If you say you don't want the police officer, you just lose the police officer. You don't get any money. So there's really, you're not really helping the schools. The whole point of a quote unquote defund the police movement is that you could take the money that was being spent on police and spend it on other things. So that was the central issue with the vote yesterday. The Board of Education was deciding whether they should rip up the contract essentially with the police and not require every school to have a police officer. And Mayor Lightfoot said that she didn't want them to approve that. And it was presented as, will the Board of Education, which is all appointed by Mayor Lori Lightfoot, take a stand against Lori Lightfoot? Will they embarrass her? Remember that? Will they embarrass her? It'll be a huge embarrassment if she loses. And ultimately they decided they didn't want to embarrass Mayor Lori Lightfoot. So they voted 4-3 to keep the contract. And the contract expires in August anyway, Dee. So we're going to be right back here probably in August and September having this conversation because they'll have to decide whether they want to continue funding police in the schools.
Great riff as always. And way to reveal how long you've haven't been in a school, a computer teacher.
Oh, a computer lab.
Hi, I'm your computer teacher. Anything you want to know, I'll teach you about computers. Good
computer
time.
Lab, computer. What do they call them? If not computer teachers.
I mean, there's all kinds of programs you can learn on a computer. I think all classes could probably be done through a computer. You
No,
know
but
what I mean?
computer
teacher.
It's been a while since you've been to school, young man.
Yeah,
There's the
I know
computer room, and there's the computer teacher.
That's awesome. All right, guys. That's our local news. Live stream chat. Keep on chatting. Send us your thoughts here. And Michael Girardi weighed in. He heard that intro there from Lori Lightfoot. He says, I wish I could go in Lori Lightfoot's house and tune that damn guitar and teach her how to play and tell her how much she sucks.
Oh, no. He didn't say that, did he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or no, play her a song about how much she sucks.
I see.
Is that your next song, Michael? Send it our way. Yes, Michael Girardi has recorded several songs specifically for the Ben Joravsky Show. You heard a couple at the beginning of the program. We're going to play one more as we go to break. And when we come back, we're talking all things unions and labor and so much more with the other big feller, Union Man Ed Maher. So people, don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Ben Joravsky Show. And yes, we're still live from Ben's house.
Correct.
Take a chill pill, man.
Springtime. Love it. I'm a Trumpocrat. A Trumpocrat, that's right.
I just biked around Lake Michigan. Nearly 1,000 miles.
Correct.
I'm not a doctor. I'm a Trumpocrat. Double bread, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
It's the butter cow, which has 9 hearts to represent the 9 essential nutrients in milk. That's right, it's made entirely out of butter, and it's a state fair tradition since at least 1922.
Hey guys, we're back. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. Yeah, we're in Ben's attic. All right, we're calling up Union Man Ed Maher right now. See if he answers.
Favorite part of the show.
Ben loves this part.
I love this part.
I think he's lying.
Fill me with dread, but no, I'm cool with it now. I love it. Mm-hmm.
Waiting for the Union Man. Oh, I think we got him. Oh, wait.
Nope.
I lied. Ed Maher. Hey, Ed, what's up, dude? It's Dennis.
All right.
What's happening, buddy? How are you?
Hey, doing good. We're live.
We're live, and you sound really good. Real loud and clear, Ed Maher.
I am really good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty loud. I'm very loud. I'm kind of clear.
And it's been a while. We missed you last month. Are you staying safe and sound? That's the first question.
Yeah. Everything is good. We're still working in the office, and construction continues. But yeah, everything has been good. Everybody's been careful, and thankfully, me and my family and people close to me are staying safe, and hopefully the same is for both of you guys.
Yeah, so far so good. Touching wood. I went to the dentist today. I've been talking a lot about that on the show, and it was kind of funny because the dentist was like wearing a hazmat suit. I mean, it was a different kind of dentist. And then you know how they talk to you, Ed, when they put all the stuff in you and the drill going, and it's hard to hear anyway, and it's really hard to hear. I don't know if I've been to a dentist lately, but it's really hard to hear when they got masks.
And I mean, why are they trying to talk to you? Because you got your mouth open wide and it's stuffed with God knows what. So even if it's a yes or no question, you can't even. There's only one response, which is
yeah, no,
you just make an utterance. So yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. But conversation with the dentist while he's got his hands in your mouth, it's kind of a weird situation. I wish they. It's like sitting on an airplane next to an awkward person. It's just better not to.
Well, I was remembering this back in the day when I was a kid or a teenager. My dentist was a real conservative, and I don't think he wanted a conversation. He just wanted to lecture me about how great Richard Nixon was. So when I was there, totally exposed, mouth open, couldn't say anything, that's when he started telling me how wonderful Nixon Agnew was. 4 more years, that kind of thing. All right, Ed.
Clearly it didn't work.
It didn't work. No, it didn't work. I went in the other direction and have been there ever since. I've been lodged there ever since. All right, we'll get to presidential politics in a little while. I just, right before you picked up the phone, the Washington Post released a story of a new poll that sort of underscores the poll that the New York Times has been releasing over the last couple days. But let's talk in general terms about the economy. This is something that's been on my mind for personal reasons. I think I mentioned this to you. My oldest daughter is thinking about buying a house and doesn't know if she should buy a house. Just in general, if the price is too high, if we're going to have a housing crisis on the horizon. Interest rates are really low now, but with the pandemic, it's just a sense like foreboding, not quite sure which way we're going. Is it 2007 and we're heading for a crash? So let's just talk in general terms, your thoughts from your perspective, where we are with the economy.
I mean, so there are a number of different indicators that you can tell from the construction perspective on where the strengths of the economy lie, because construction is a very good indicator of what the next year or 2 years looks like in the economy. residential construction, I find it sort of hard to think that we're not heading toward a slowdown, which, of course, it would result in prices going down. The fact that interest rates are so low and that so much movement was made by the Fed so quickly, I think concerned a lot of people because, if we're set up for a prolonged recession or, contraction, then I think, you want to have a couple bullets left in the gun from a policy standpoint. It seems like we don't really have that, when it comes to the federal rates. But anyhow, a lot of the construction that goes on, residential construction has not ever picked up from what it was pre-2008. For Local 150, we used to have about 40% of our hours worked coming from residential construction. So that's, if you think of, out around like Plainfield, Oswego, some of the outlying suburbs, they were just building enormous subdivisions that required land to be flattened and graded and access roads put in and basements dug and all that kind of work. And, quickly that evaporated. That went down to nothing. So our unemployment skyrocketed at that time. We had to retool and retrain our workers for other industries. I don't know if we're going to see the same thing, the same effect, just because construction never really got back to that level. But a lot of, like the downtown high-rises, are, rental and they're residential. So the impact on that, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of new planned construction there. And it's similar to the commercial sector where, while there are still tower cranes going up in the air on buildings that are both residential and commercial and mixed use, a lot of people will say, we'll see that construction continues. But there has been a massive drop in permitting for future starts. And so I think a lot of the high rises, especially when those stop, there's not really going to be a ton following them up. So it's likely to see a significant drop in commercial construction because a lot of businesses have been suffering from being closed as well. I think people are a little bit more careful about spending their money because they're uncertain about what their job prospects long term are going to be. But yeah, the strength that we're finding is in infrastructure. So Illinois last year passed a 10-year, $45 billion capital plan, the majority of which went to roads, bridges, and utilities. The rest was public buildings like museums, schools, other publicly funded construction. So much like in 2008, that work continued, and that was, a massive boon to the economy. Back in, the Great Depression, FDR was a massive advocate of big spending, deficit spending on things like infrastructure and public works and, creating the national parks, just taking people and putting them to work in whatever ways we could to sort of, build the infrastructure of our country. So that's something that we're still seeing, good solid levels of work on infrastructure, mainly transportation infrastructure. So despite the reduction in motor fuel tax receipts, which comes from people home not commuting, there was a drop of between 45 and 55% between March and May in gas tax receipts, which means less money to put toward infrastructure. But IDOT is trying to maintain this year's budget, and it sounds like they're going to be able to. Similar situation with the tollway. The tolls dropped at almost an identical level, about 50 to 55%. But they've had budget allocations laid out for a couple of years now. It's a pretty conservatively run agency. They don't overspend, so they're going to be able to keep their budget going, which is, it's a lot of work. With the tollway, what they've got going on right now is the rebuild of I-294. They just settled a lawsuit over in Itasca with Canadian Pacific, Canadian National Railroad. That's going to allow them to start the ring road on the western edge of O'Hare Airport. So the tollway is going to have work that keeps construction workers going for several years still. And while I'm mentioning the airport, nothing's slowing down at the airport. If anything, the slowdown in runway traffic is giving them room to do more construction work. And O'Hare Airport for the last 40 years has been the biggest construction project in the Chicago area. So infrastructure is still pretty solid. One thing that's a little bit concerning is, whenever every sector of the economy is struggling, as it did in 2009, 2010, 2011, you still saw a lot of spending in healthcare. You could still build beautiful, shiny new hospitals and, to the same degree, pretty much, managed care facilities, senior living facilities. And now we're seeing, because of the slowdown in routine, doctor's visits or elective procedures, a lot of hospitals are laying people off, and then smaller non-network hospitals are closing, or just shutting down entire departments or massive downsizing. So if healthcare is not there to support the economy or support construction, I think that it's going to be a pretty bad sign for a lot of construction workers. But it's also just a sign of a weakness in a part of the economy that we didn't see last time around. So it's an entirely different situation than it was in the recession. Hopefully as things open up slowly and responsibly, the economy will start to kind of pick up steam, because as we've seen, it's really hard to gauge, because the stock market, it staged a rally and basically made up all of its losses through 2020 by a couple of weeks ago, and now it started getting a little bit shaky again. The stock market doesn't reflect the economic reality for most people, because once again this week the unemployment numbers the people filing unemployment claims were higher than expected. So I think the reality is that there's going to be sort of a long-term impact, and some of the things you can see in the construction permits and lettings. I think from a construction perspective, that's pretty much what I can say.
Well, you mentioned the stock market. I'm going to come back to the construction issue, but you mentioned the stock market. When you said that it doesn't reflect the reality of the markets, there was a theory that's been floating around that because the sports world is shut down, the gamblers are turning to the stock market for their gambling jones. I don't know if you've been following this one, and that is in fact what's propping up the stock market right now. The people who would normally bet on whether the Cubs are going to beat the Dodgers or what have you are now pumping their money into gambling. It's basically gambling through the stock market as opposed to like long-term investment strategies. I don't know if you follow that one, Ed, but it just underscores the point you're making that the stock market doesn't really bear a direct reality, to the everyday economy.
What a terrifying prospect that is. I haven't heard much on that, but it certainly seems realistic. And if you look back to the mid-2000s, the Great Recession was caused by basically gambling, whether it was derivatives or CDOs or things like that. It was just insane, creative sort of gambling vehicles within the financial industry that kind of caused that propping up to sort of vanish immediately and leave absolutely no underlying strength, and the whole thing collapsed. So I don't know. Now you've given me something completely new to worry about. So
Yeah, no, it's a theory that's pretty prevalent, by the way, among stockbrokers.
That's interesting. I haven't heard much, but I'm gonna have to do a little bit of light reading on that.
Yeah, so maybe with the baseball opening up and basketball, you may see an adjustment coming in the stock market. All right, let's talk. You were talking about the amount of money that Illinois is investing in infrastructure, and before you came on, we played a commercial that I guess it was the Illinois Republicans, that have come out blasting Pritzker as a tax and spend liberal. And one of the things they blasted him for are the tax rates, the increases that went to fund some of these infrastructure programs. How deep do you think the resentment is in the state of Illinois to raising money for infrastructure projects?
So I'll tell you what. There were a lot of Republicans who voted for the gas tax increase and for the projects that it funded. There were some Republicans who voted against the gas tax increase but voted for the project, just so they could still, take credit for ribbon cuttings, but kind of cop out on actually paying for projects. The real increase in the gas tax, I want to say, And so 2 months after the gas tax increase went into effect, gas was still 30 cents a gallon cheaper than it was prior. So I don't think at that time that there was a lot of there wasn't a lot of sticker shock. I mean, on that day, the news reports were all, today you might see a shock at the gas pump, but because the price trend for petroleum was so so far down, people never really saw a real increase at the pump. But the need, and people on both sides of the aisle agreed with the need to fund infrastructure, because at that time we had such a backlog of not only roads but bridges. I think almost 20% of our miles of publicly funded Department of Transportation road in Illinois were in poor condition, and we had, I want to say, 1,200 bridges that were functionally obsolete or structurally deficient. So it's something that had to be addressed, and everybody agreed with it. Whether it's at the state or the federal level, infrastructure is one of those things you can't neglect. And everybody agreed that the need was real. Every year the Society of Civil Engineers comes out with a report card, a state-by-state report card and a federal report card. And our infrastructure in Illinois was graded as a D, so something had to be done. And the cleanest way to fund infrastructure, the fairest way to fund infrastructure, is by a user fee. Mm-hmm. So who pays for roads? If you ride a bicycle every day to work, should you be paying for wear and tear on the roads? Arguably, no. So that is paid for by the gas tax. So if you're driving on the road, if you're wearing down the roads with whatever kind of vehicle you're driving, you're sharing the cost of that. If there's a fairer way, I'd love to hear about it. For a while there was some talk about what's called a vehicle miles traveled model of funding transportation, which uses a transponder in your car to determine how much you're driving, how many miles you're driving, and bills you accordingly or charges you accordingly. That's an incredibly fair way to fund infrastructure, but there are a lot of privacy concerns. Some of them were pretty well founded, and so that proposal was pretty much DLA in the Illinois Senate when they started kind of talking about it maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's something that other states have looked at, but yeah, I mean, raising the gas tax is the way to do this. At a federal level, the president has talked about doing a $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which sounds awesome, but it hasn't gotten any steam because the way that he wants to do it is by attracting private investors to pay for infrastructure. So, the way to do this is a gas tax. I'll just be the first to say that. It doesn't sound good. Tax increase never sound good, but the way to fund infrastructure is through increasing the gas tax, at least for now. Well, until vehicles are so efficient that we move entirely over to electric vehicles, we've got to find something else. But the way that they were talking about it at the federal level was through public-private partnerships, like through the whole $1 trillion, which means you get an investment vehicle, investment group to say, okay, well, we're going to fund let's say, the replacement of Chicago's water infrastructure. Now, they're an investment group, so they've got to make their money back, and then they've got to make a little bit more. So how, if you are replacing, water pipes, how do you do that? You put a tax on water. You could do that with a water system. You could do it with a bridge, where you toll a bridge or toll a road. But what about a sidewalk? What about a bike path? There are not a lot of ways for a lot of critical but sort of unrecognized infrastructure to return profit to investors. And I think that's something that a lot of people recognize in the infrastructure world. Could you get a public-private partnership to work for a highway like the Indiana Skyway or the Skyway or the Indiana Toll Road? Sure, because there's a way to recoup investment. But for other things that you need, but that are sort of, let's say, the less sexy versions are pieces of infrastructure like curb and gutter or streetlights. Investors aren't lining up to pour their money into that kind of stuff. So that model doesn't work. Or it sure as hell doesn't work well for your average motorist or people who use, public water, which is everybody. If you get a private investment firm to pay for, the reconstruction of the water infrastructure, what does that mean for people who use water? It means they're going to be paying for their water, and they're going to be paying a little bit extra to this investment firm. That's how that system works. And, I think everybody should be a little bit uncomfortable with the idea that, you could have new infrastructure and businesses would be profiting off of that for many, many years to come. So, I mean, that's not the way to do it. It's not realistic. There's pieces of that can work, but for infrastructure at large, and especially transportation infrastructure, the fairest way to do it is through a gas tax increase. We did it in Illinois. They did it in Indiana. I don't think there's an appetite to do it in Washington, but I think without that, we're not going to see any sort of meaningful investment coming out of DC for, I don't know, the time being, at least until there's sort of a shift in the conversation.
Well, I'll go one step further. I'm very skeptical, to put it mildly, and that's a very mild use of the word, of any attempt. You mentioned the Skyway. I think of the parking meters. When you bring a private entity into a venture like the Skyway, suddenly it's not a public interest thing, and you have to sweeten the pot so that they're making money off of it, and so rates go up. The Skyway is so expensive. It's been a while since I've been on the Skyway. Every time I'm like, God damn, this thing is expensive. And I don't, embarrassing moment here. The little device you put on your car that allows you to go through the automatic toll, and it fell off and we lost it. So we have to pay the toll itself. A little confession time.
Did it fall out of the car?
It fell out of the car. And one of these days I'll go back to the Jewel again. And the point is, I see how expensive it is. And, it's not just you're not just paying for upkeep of the road, you're paying for the profits to run it. It's the same thing with the parking meters.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the parking meter example is a worst case scenario of what happens when you bring an investment vehicle in to just kind of raise some emergency funding. I think, what did they lease those out for? 99 years, and I think they spent through all of the money in like 18 months.
Yeah, no, it's what I always tell people, and this is approximates, essentially it was a loan. So essentially the consortium of investors lent the city of Chicago about $1.1 billion, which at the time, the city was like, look at this, we're getting $1 billion. And over the course of the deal, the city of Chicago, will deliver to them approximately $10 billion. So the loan
that's billion with a B.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot.
With a B.
With a B. So, yeah, that's the deal. It was essentially a loan, Ed. That's what it was. They gave us the money up front, and we're paying it back with interest over the next 75 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, those are the kind of lopsided deals that you're going to have to see to attract the type of interest, because there will be a lot of people who are like, over 100 years we could double our money. Not a really great idea in the investment world, but if you could make a tenfold increase in your investment, yeah, you'll get people lined up to do that. So, I mean, the kind of deals that you'll have to make to get $1 trillion plan like that to work are not going to be ones that are really in the best interest of the public.
All right. Now, before I switch it to national politics, we've been talking about the state of Illinois. Get your thoughts on J.B. Pritzker in the pandemic. We've spent a lot of time before you came on talking about some of the criticism Republicans been registering against him. I'm very open. I don't see a lot of legitimacy. This is me speaking about the Republican criticism of Pritzker over the last 6 months. To put it mildly, I don't see a lot of any legitimacy, I could say. But what's sort of your view, or the view of people in your union about Pritzker? Are they is there a sentiment favoring the Republican criticism, or are they more supportive of Pritzker?
No, I think there's majority, I would say, it's support. Our members of our union are very well aware of what he did to support the infrastructure package last year. It's the biggest infrastructure package Illinois ever had. So there's a lot of support there. I think that our members are with 23,000 members kind of spread around Illinois and Indiana. We've got a pretty decent sampling of every demographic. I like to always say that we're like a small city. We've got everybody. We've got every kind of person that you'd find in a small city. And you do have, folks who have the Don't Tread on Me flag flying who are, very anti-tax, but who, work on projects that are funded by taxes. And then you have the majority that understand that infrastructure comes from, or funding for infrastructure comes from tax receipts. So I think that the majority are supportive of them for that reason. Now, I'll say from polling of our union and of the public, we've also seen a massive jump in popularity for Pritzker during the pandemic. There is a kind of a very loud minority that's very upset about him, doing the stay-at-home order or keeping businesses closed. But I think the majority of Illinois recognizes that it was the right thing to do and that the action was taken pretty quickly. And when you look at states that are, I think it's 23 states now where the numbers are going up with new cases, many of which where they had previously been declining, Illinois is still declining. So we find ourselves in that position, I think, because of pretty prudent leadership. And so I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't always agree with Governor Pritzker on his policies, but I think he's done a hell of a job in this. And if after what you're seeing with our COVID statistics, with the number of cases continuing to go down, and our state being one of the only states, I think it's still the only state that meets the 5 federal criteria for reopening. If amidst all that, you're going to throw darts at him for raising gas taxes last year, you're really grasping at straws.
Yeah, that's sort of how I see it as well. And before I move to national, I think I told you this before, Ed. I'm worried about a spike even in Illinois. And,
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, the impatience of people in this country. I mentioned this on the show, and I mentioned this to you earlier. Just the impatience of people. They've had enough. We're going back out. That's it. We're done with this. And then, it's not like the virus is just going to disappear. And so I find that very frustrating on many levels.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah. All right, let's move to national. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
let's move to national politics. I got this brand new poll in front of me, which there's one from today's New York Times, and then the Washington Post came out with its own poll. And at the moment, the snapshot is not very good news for Donald Trump and the Republicans. The New York Times, both polls have Biden up by about 14 points nationwide. Now, as we all know, Ed, it's electoral college is what determines the winner. Even if Joe Biden gets 55% of the vote and he doesn't win the electoral college, Donald Trump gets to run the show. But this is
right.
The New York Times deeper dive and the Washington Post deep dive shows that in 7 swing states who have the ability to switch the election, to carry the election for either Biden or Trump, Biden has at least a 9 percentage point lead in the latest polls. And I'll just read to you those swing states. I found this surprising news. North Carolina is one of those states. Arizona is another state. Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And your general thoughts about that?
I think there are a lot of factors at play here. Now, you're never at any point. He could be down 50 in the polls the day before the election. You're still not going to catch me celebrating, because I was pretty confident he was going to lose in 2016, and I was the guy staggering out of my house the next morning, not sure what the hell had happened. So I'm not putting any faith in any kind of polling, or too much faith into any kind of polling. But I think that things aren't looking very good for him, because a lot of the resurgence in these COVID cases is taking place in conservative states now. The initial waves seem to take place in Democratic strongholds, and now the second wave is going through the South and the West, and in a lot of places where people are looking for leadership now, much like other states like New York and California and Pritzker. I mean, we had governors that were extremely critical of the president early on in this, because there was a complete lack of leadership. And I think that some of these states are starting to see that now, where you have like the governor of Texas just they reopened everything about a month ago, and he just came out and said that he's urging everyone to stay at home now. So there's going to be a lot of confusion in some of these typical Republican states or in swing states, and there's just no hope, I think, for any kind of federal leadership on that. So I don't know. I mean, the president is he's a rally guy, so his only hope is that he can start drawing actual crowds to his rallies and fire them up by making enemies out of whoever he can. That Tulsa, I think, was a pretty negative indication that he's going to be able to do that. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in the ability of the president to sort of pivot and rethink a successful campaign strategy that doesn't involve rallies and fear mongering and creating enemies out of thin air. So I don't know if that's going to be as successful this time as it was last time. Because I think a lot of the states where he was successful with that are going to find themselves unable to host rallies over the next couple of months. So I don't know. I like to think that maybe this house of cards is kind of failing, but again, I try not to be too optimistic.
Well, if
I just can't take another morning like that, man. I was a pretty sad guy then.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I'm going to break it to you. We were talking about this yesterday, and I've read articles in the papers today and online. It won't be the morning after this time. Because so many people will be voting by mail, it may be the week after. You get what I'm saying? It's going to be a totally different kind of election in this cycle. We won't know the winner, definitively know the winner for, I don't know, maybe a week, 10 days afterward.
And you can see how sort of troubling that can be, because there are states that are just very anti-vote by mail. And I mean, the president voted by mail. Ivanka has voted by mail. Jared Kushner has voted by mail, and they're lining up saying this is not the way to do it. Voting by mail is, I mean, a lot of people haven't done it. I've definitely done it. It's easy. I mean, it is the ideal way to vote, I think. But like the state of Kentucky, I think Louisville for Kentucky's primary had one polling place. And they cut the number of polling places by 95% across the state of Kentucky. So the only hope for some of these states to stay red is just by trying to squash turnout. Whether or not that works, I don't know. But if you've got one voting center in Louisville, Kentucky, a major city, people aren't going to want to go vote because they're going to be worried about their health and their safety. So, I mean, the state of Illinois has already agreed to make Election Day a holiday. People aren't going to have to work on November 3rd, and vote by mail is going to be the law of the land in Illinois. Now, other states, I think, are going to tweak and screw with, election law as they see fit to get the outcome that they're looking for. So it's going to be crazy. I mean, we thought voter ID laws and stuff like that were a little bit nuts, over the last 5 or 6 years, and it is. I mean, the stuff that they've done with voter ID is disgusting, and purging voter rolls of people who haven't voted in 2 years. But we're going to see a whole new way that they try to pervert the federal election system over the next couple of months, and I just hope that I hope it doesn't work. I hope they don't get away with it, because if you can do the things that they're talking about doing and still come out victorious and not get people protesting out in the streets, then I sort of worry about the future of the country. If you can get away with that, what else can you get away with? It's a pretty spooky, slippery slope.
Well, I will make this prediction. I recall Florida in 2000 election where they were counting the ballots by hand, and the scene in the warehouses where they were counting the ballots. There were Democratic operatives, Republican operatives. They had lawyers. This is much the same way here in the city of Chicago at the Board of Election Commissioners, Ed, in a really tight aldermanic race where everybody's in a room.
Yep.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of operatives in a room clustered over a Board of Election employees counting ballots. And I think that everybody knows the stakes, and I'm really hoping, and listen, I said this at the start of the show, all my eggs are in that Joe Biden basket. I kind of resent that in many ways, Ed, because Joe Biden and I don't agree eye to eye on a lot of things. But Trump is such a disaster that I feel like the country has to break his grip and get him out of office. And I sense that I'm by no means alone. I just believe that there will be so many operatives. The Democrats and the Republicans will just flood these rooms, warehouses, wherever the votes are being counted. It's going to be a spectacle.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't disagree. It's hard to find a perfect political candidate. But when it comes to this, and when Bernie when he stepped out, people are saying, "Oh, these Bernie supporters are not going to vote for Joe Biden." I mean, I was a pretty big Bernie supporter as well, but when it comes to politics, it's always been pretty clear to me that you just can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Then when it comes to candidates that may not be perfect for you, if you were standing there and somebody had a gun pointed at you and they said they were going to either shoot you in the foot or shoot you in the face, I'll take the foot every single time. So, if Biden's not the perfect guy, well, it's a lot better to get shot in the face with another 4 years of Donald Trump, at least in my perspective. Other people might see it completely the opposite, but I'll take pretty much anybody within reason who's not named Donald Trump.
I'm with you in that one, but I'm not sure that's a great slogan for any campaign. We'll shoot you in the foot. Ed Maher, thanks so much for coming on again. Stay safe. We'll talk to you next month, all right?
That sounds good. Take care of yourselves. You too, Dennis.
Hey, see you, buddy.
All right, that's great, Ed Maher.
Take care, guys.
And that's it for today. We're
Man,
going
booming voice that guy's got.
He's got the voice. Any updates, Steve, before we head out the door?
Yeah, we got some updates here. First off, shout out to the live stream chat. You guys are awesome. Kathy on the live stream chat is trying to get us to do some kind of a contest. But Kathy, we need things to give away. I don't think we have anything to give away. Ben, what do you got here in your attic that we can maybe give away?
Well, I have...
Oh, the reader coloring book. That is actually something we could give away.
It's pretty cool. And the reader it's the reefer book.
Okay, that's cool.
It's recipes for...
I'm looking around here.
Yeah, and...
All right, paper towels.
Okay. How about that Bulls cup?
A Bulls cup? It's looks very used, this Bulls cup.
That Bulls cup was from I think 1991.
Okay, so we do have a prize, though. The Chicago Reader Coloring Book and that Reefer book.
Yeah, the Reader Recipe Book.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. Reader Reefer Recipe Book.
Hello.
Okay, if you guys are interested in that, let us know in the live stream chat. Maybe we can do a contest. So let me use my producer brain to whip something up. Give me a few days. What? Oh, look at that, audience. Oh, it's a picture of Muhammad Ali. Great hosting, Ben. Oh, look at this.
And how about this? Look, D.
Oh, great. Keep this going.
No, but this one is this is another picture of Muhammad Ali. This is an obsessive Muhammad Ali fan. And this is a picture of Muhammad Ali. He's in a swimming pool underwater, and he's pretending he's boxing. And he wrote, and the quote is, "I know where I'm going, and I know the truth, and I don't have to be what you want me to be. I'm free to be what I want." Muhammad Ali. So there we go. Give that away.
All right.
I don't know if I want to give that up.
Yeah, well, you brought it up, dude.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, here you go. How about this? A reader notebook. These are really cool, by the way.
Chicago Reader Notebook.
Yeah. Reader notebook.
Okay, we got some prizes here. Brianna weighed in and said, how about that milk carton back at the studio? Remember that?
Oh, yeah. I hope it's still there. You think they've ransacked our room?
Maybe. I don't know.
No. Yeah,
Wouldn't that be crazy? We go in and it's a completely different show. Oh, hey, guys. Franz Spielman just took it over.
It's like the Twilight Zone. Ooh, come back.
Okay, Kathy, we're not giving away Admiral Theater passes.
Why not?
Why not? There's a pandemic going on.
You're right. Good point, young man.
All right, we do have some updates here. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. Ben Pope? Ben, do I know you? Have I seen you in the Chicago Sun-Times bathroom? I don't know. I don't know if I've seen Ben Pope. And Claire Proctor. Two names I've never heard of here at the Sun-Times. Boy, we need to get back there and meet these new people. All right, the following comes from the Sun-Times. It says here, Lane Tech High School considering changing their mascot. Ben, because you're the biggest Chicago dork I know. What is the mascot currently of Lane Tech?
I believe they're the Indians, aren't they?
That's correct.
Are they not?
That's correct.
Wow, I got it right.
Does Robert Mueller need to repeat himself? My God. All right, one of Chicago's largest high schools may change its mascot. What?
You're just going to let that go that I do that?
Yeah, you're a dork. It's assumed. If you didn't know that, I wouldn't let it go. One of Chicago's largest high schools may soon change its mascot, name, and logo away from the Indians. Lane Tech principal Brian Tennyson sent an email to current students and families late Tuesday stating the school is working with Chicago Public Schools to consider selecting a new mascot. Brian Tennyson said, quote, during this important time of confronting racist structures within our society and in our school, we as a school community have been hearing from various stakeholders asking to change Lane's mascot. Tennyson stated in the email obtained by the Chicago Sun-Times and continued saying, quote, as a school community, we champion diversity, inclusion, and understanding, and it's essential that we live up to these ideas in all possible ways. Ben, 2 questions. Your thoughts here on them changing the mascot name and maybe an idea for a new mascot name.
I think they should definitely change the mascot name, and I think they should change the name to Reefer Heads.
Okay. That's worse.
What? What's the matter with Reefer Heads?
Oh,
we're the Lane Tech Reefer Heads.
Oh, yeah, we're going to go far in life. High school.
Hey, it did wonders for you and me.
Oh, yeah, because I'm just balling in this attic. Good times. You know what, Whitney Young, I think you had the right idea all along. Can't be mad at the Dolphins, ever.
Do you know the nickname of the school that's across the street from you?
Roosevelt High?
Yeah.
The Roses.
No, the Rough Riders.
Oh, I was close.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a story. Weigh in with your thoughts on that.
Reefer Heads, I like that.
That's horrible, the Reefer Heads.
Stoners?
Oh, okay. Well, it actually sounds cooler, but still horrible. So that's an update we have here. And shout out to Frank. You're the man. I'm using your account.
Frank, thank you. You're propping up this empire.
How funny.
No, he corrects us when we're wrong, which is a lot.
They won't give me a free subscription to the Sun-Times, so I have to use listeners' subscriptions.
You could use my subscription, except I don't know where it is. And my password. I just don't know where I don't have it. And I've hit the paywall. I subscribe, and I've hit the payroll.
Roe has a great mascot name for Lane Tech, the Manatees.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Oh, way better than the Stoners.
I like the Stoners. How about the Bulls? I love the Bulls. The Lane Tech Bulls.
Shout out to Steven. Steven says, Ben Joravsky, pioneer of podcasting prop comedy.
You like that, huh?
That's sarcasm.
Oh, it's sarcasm?
Yeah, big time. And we'll do one more update here. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. And Sam Charles, 2 first names. All right, he says here, less than a day. Oh, this is in the headline reads, Osandero brothers resume cooperation in Smollett prosecution 1 day after refusing to help. Less than a day after saying they would no longer cooperate with Cook County prosecutors, 2 central figures in the Jussie Smollett saga are back on board, their attorney said Thursday. Hey guys, all listeners, can we just collectively stop giving a shit about the Smollett gate? It's over, guys.
Yeah, I feel as
bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Jussie Smollett. I think that Kim Foxx's triumph in the primary indicates that I think most people in and around the city of Chicago have moved on.
Hey, here's a good name for Lane Tech. We got the lake nearby, the Lane Tech Lakers. Pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
Right?
Good job. Who came up with that?
It was me. I just came up with it.
See?
See what?
Marijuana didn't hurt you. Your brain's working really well. Okay? There you go. Here, have another joint.
Okay, I'm not smoking pot during the show. That's the show, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.
And we'll take a break. We'll upload it, and we'll come back.
We're not taking a break. The show's over.
No, but you and I will take a break.
But when you say take a break, it sounds like we're going on commercial.
What are you, a lawyer all of a sudden?
I'm a producer of a podcast.
We are literally going to take a break, and then we're going to have an interview that we're going to do, which you'll be able to hear at 7 o'clock. The great show. thank Ed Maher for coming on. And of course, thank the man, the myth, the legend, pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show could not be possible. Back home in Alton, they call them the Lakers. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash.
See you tomorrow, everybody.
We're taking a break.
And hey, remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows. There's like 500 of them. And Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts.
It's the butter cow, which has 9 hearts to represent the 9 essential nutrients in milk. That's right, it's made entirely out of butter, and it's a state fair tradition since at least 1922.
I'm a trumpocrat. The trumpocrat, that's right.
And for the record, I love puppies.
Yes, that's billion with a B. Ugh. Just stay home. Save lives.
That's correct.